Five methods of death. Number 5. Fall from a height. A high fall is certainly among the speediest ways to die. Terminal velocity, no pun intended, is about 200 km per hour, achieved from a height of about 145 meters or more. A study of deadly falls in Hamburg, Germany, found that 75% of victims died in the first few seconds or minutes after landing. The exact cause of death varies, depending on the landing surface and the person's posture. People are especially unlikely to arrive at the hospital alive if they land on their head, more common for shorter and higher falls. An 1981 analysis of 100 suicidal jumps from the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, height, 75 meters, velocity on impact with the water, 120 km per hour, found numerous causes of instantaneous death including massive lung bruising, collapsed lungs, exploded hearts or damage to major blood vessels and lungs through broken ribs. Survivors of great falls often report the sensation of time slowing down. The natural reaction is to struggle to maintain a feet-first landing, resulting in fractures to the leg bones, lower spinal column and life-threatening broken pelvises. The impact traveling up through the body can also burst the aorta and heart chambers. Yet this is probably still the safest way to land. Despite the force being concentrated in a small area, the feet and legs form a crumple zone which provides some protection to the major internal organs. Some experienced climbers or skydivers who have survived a fall report feeling focused, alert and driven to ensure they landed in the best way possible, relaxed, legs bent and, where possible, ready to roll. Certainly every little helps, but the top tip for fallers must be to aim for a soft landing. A paper from 1942 reports a woman falling 28 meters from her apartment building into freshly tilled soil. She walked away with just a fractured rib and broken wrist. Number 4. Heretics. Burning to death is torture. Hot smoke and flames singe eyebrows and hair and burn the throat and airways, making it hard to breathe. Burns inflict immediate and intense pain through stimulation of the nociceptors, the pain nerves in the skin. To make matters worse, burns also trigger a rapid inflammatory response, which boosts sensitivity to pain in the injured tissues and surrounding areas. As burn intensities progress, some feeling is lost but not much, says David Herndon, a burns care specialist at University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston. Third-degree burns do not hurt as much as second-degree wounds, as superficial nerves are destroyed. But the difference is semantic. Large burns are horrifically painful in any instance. Some victims of severe burns report not feeling their injuries while they are still in danger or intent on saving others. Once the adrenaline and shock wear off, however, the pain quickly sets in. Pain management remains one of the most challenging medical problems in the care of burns victims. Most people who die in fires do not in fact die from burns. The most common cause of death is inhaling toxic gases, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide and even hydrogen cyanide, together with the suffocating lack of oxygen. One study of fire deaths in Norway from 1996 found that almost 75% of the 286 people autopsied had died from carbon monoxide poisoning. Depending on the size of the fire and how close you are to it, concentrations of carbon monoxide could start to cause headache and drowsiness in minutes, eventually leading to unconsciousness. According to the U.S. National Fire Protection Association, 40% of the victims of fatal home fires are knocked out by fumes before they can even wake up. Number 3. Bleeding to death. The speed of exsanguination, as bleeding to death is known, depends on the source of the bleed, says John Cartbeek at the University of Calgary in Alberta, Canada, and chair of advanced trauma life support for the American College of Surgeons. People can bleed to death in seconds if the aorta, the major blood vessel leading from the heart, is completely severed. For example, after a severe fall or car accident, death could creep up much more slowly if a smaller vein or artery is nicked, even taking hours. Such victims would experience several stages of hemorrhagic shock. The average adult has 5 liters of blood. Losses of around 750 milliliters generally cause few symptoms. Anyone losing 1.5 liters, either through an external wound or internal bleeding, feels weak, thirsty and anxious, and would be breathing fast. By 2 liters, people experienced dizziness, confusion and then eventual unconsciousness. Survivors of hemorrhagic shock describe many different experiences, ranging from fear to relative calm, Coleridge Beeks says. In large part this would depend on what and how extensive the associated injuries were. A single penetrating wound to the femoral artery in the leg might be less painful than multiple fractures sustained in a motor vehicle crash. Number 2. Heart attack. The Hollywood heart attack, featuring sudden pain, desperate chest clutching and immediate collapse, certainly happens in a few cases. But a typical myocardial infarction, as medical speak has it, is a lot less dramatic and comes on slowly, beginning with mild discomfort. The most common symptom is, of course, chest pain, a tightness, pressure or squeezing, often described as an elephant on my chest, which may be lasting or come and go. This is the heart muscle struggling and dying from oxygen deprivation. Pain can radiate to the jaw, throat, back, belly and arms. Other signs and symptoms include shortness of breath, nausea and cold sweats. Eating an average of 2 to 6 hours. Women are the worst, probably because they are more likely to experience less well-known symptoms, such as breathlessness, back or jaw pain, or nausea, says Joanne Manson, an epidemiologist at Harvard Medical School. Survivors say they just didn't want to make a fuss, that it felt more like indigestion, tiredness or muscle cramps than a heart attack. Then again, some victims are just in denial. Delay costs lives. Most people who die from heart attacks do so before reaching hospital. The actual cause of death is often heart arrhythmia, a disruption of the normal heart rhythm. In other words, even small heart attacks can play havoc with the electrical impulses that control heart muscle contraction, effectively stopping it. In about 10 seconds the person loses consciousness, and minutes later they are dead. Patients who make it to hospital quickly fare much better. In the UK and US, more than 85% of heart attack patients admitted to hospital survive to 30 days. Hospitals can deploy defibrillators to shock the heart back into rhythm, and clot-busting drugs and artery-clearing surgery. Number 1. Drowning. Drowning has a certain dark romance to it. Countless literary heroines have met their end slipping beneath the waves with billowy layers of petticoats floating around their heads. In reality, suffocating to death in water is neither pretty nor painless, though it can be surprisingly swift. Just how fast people drown depends on several factors, including swimming ability and water temperature. In the UK, where the water is generally cold, 55% of open water drownings occur within 3 meters of safety. 2/3 of victims are good swimmers, suggesting that people can get into difficulties within seconds, says Mike Tipton, a physiologist and expert in marine survival at the University of Portsmouth in the UK. Typically, when a victim realizes that they cannot keep their head above water, they tend to panic, leading to the classic surface struggle. They gasp for air at the surface and hold their breath as they bob beneath, says Tipton. Struggling to breathe, they can't call for help. Their bodies are upright, arms weakly grasping, as if trying to climb a non-existent ladder from the sea. Studies with New York lifeguards in the 1950s and 1960s found that this stage lasts just 20 to 60 seconds. When victims eventually submerge, they hold their breath for as long as possible, typically 30 to 90 seconds. After that, they inhale some water, splutter, cough and inhale more. Water in the lungs blocks gas exchange in delicate tissues, while inhaling water also triggers the airway to seal shut, a reflex called a laryngospasm. There is a feeling of tearing and a burning sensation in the chest as water goes down into the airway, then that sort of slips into a feeling of calmness and tranquility, says Tipton, describing reports from survivors. That calmness represents the beginnings of the loss of consciousness from oxygen deprivation, which eventually results in the heart stopping and brain death.